But there was a book out in Arabic by a gentleman named Yusuf al-Ayeri, who was he wasn't number 2 to bin Laden. He was up there in the Islamic, the Al-Qaeda leadership, but he was not a tactical strategist in terms of bombings. He was an ideological educator, leader. He was kind of like their ideological guru, teacher, modern day, and the one who was going to make sure that all their ideology is right. So he wrote a book called The Future of Iraq and the Arabian Peninsula After the Fall of Baghdad. And he's making this argument about what is at stake in this struggle. And he goes through all of these forms of, I forgot the word in Arabic, but it means like unbelief. That needs to be overcome in order to finally establish the Islamic State and bring the submission of Allah as a reality here and now. So you have all, there's communism, there's Arab nationalism, there's all these forms of unbelief. But more powerful than all those forms of unbelief, all put together, is the American notion of democracy. And here's some quotes of what he wrote in this book. And the quotes are on page 2 of your hand out there. It is not the American war machine that should be the utmost concern to Muslims. What threatens the future of Islam, in fact, its very survival, is American democracy. This form of unbelief persuades people that they are in charge of their destiny, and that using their collective reasoning, that they can shape policies and pass laws as they see fit. This leads them into ignoring the unalterable laws propagated by God for all of mankind, and codified in Islamic Sharia jurisprudence until the end of time. So he also talks about the seductive capacity of democracy. It seduces people. So it is a danger, and it is a danger that needs to be stomped out. So obviously, you have the rise of terrorism is one way to stomp it out. And we tend to look at terrorism, again, as some type of reaction to our policies, or maybe as a reaction to the poor who are coming up, or maybe, there's all kinds of, but we're looking at the terrorist and the terrorist act, and we're trying to speculate as to why he's doing that. Well, the New York City Police Department intelligence analysts did a study on terrorism, and the study was called Radicalization in the West, the Homegrown Terror Threat. And the conclusion they came to is that 9/11 style attacks, where they come over here and attack us, is an anomaly. The way of the future, and they studied about many different situations where they had broke up terror cells. They had law enforcement or intelligence officials had broken up terror cells and had averted attacks. So there's a lot more going on that we don't see because they are averting these. And so they studied these. And they came to the conclusion that the more prevalent terrorist threat is a homegrown threat, where it's developing from within the society. And that by the time the person becomes a terrorist, he has already went through a process that is culminates with him becoming a terrorist. And the process has 4 stages, and I want to go into those 4 stages. One stage is called pre-radicalization stage. Pre-radicalization stage is their life before they become a terrorist, before they step, it's normal life. The second is self-identification. Self-identification is when they start to identify themselves with the jihadi cause. The third stage is indoctrination. This is a period of education of jihadi ideology. And the fourth is jihadization. This is when they learn to become a terrorist. And by the time they become a terrorist, 95% of the damage is already done. There's a whole process that they go through that leads them from being a normal individual to being a terrorist. And so they go through all these processes, and this is what happens. And the only thing that they can't figure out is what is the mechanism, what is the turning point, the key that starts, that leads from stage 1 to stage 2, from pre-radicalization to identification. So they don't know what it is. And my speculation is that the key is a lack of cause. they talk about in this report that the identification with this jihadi cause gives them a sense of purpose, a sense of being, a sense of cause. And I had mentioned once before that there's a study put out by the Institute for American Values, and a bunch of psychologists, brain physiologists, many scientific experts come to the conclusion that the human being is hardwired to connect to a transcendent source of meaning and purpose and an authoritative community. So human beings by nature need a sense of purpose and cause. And if you have a society that is aimless and without purpose, and we don't have a sense of who we are and what we are, then you're susceptible to any cause that comes along. And so my contention is, and this is probably why it's more, in Europe they're more susceptible to it, because Europe has gone further down this road to nihilism, where you don't feel a sense of purpose and value of who you are and what you stand for. So I think the key to winning this battle is to prevent the transfer from stage 1 to stage 2. Because you adopt this cause because you don't feel a sense of cause. So if we can recapture our own vision and provide people with a sense of cause, then you short circuit this whole process and they never get to the stage where they become radicals to begin with. Now, that's my speculation. It doesn't say that in the report. That's my own. But I think that it's probably not too far off, if I do say so myself. But because this is really a war of ideas and values, and we are absent, AWOL, absent without leave in that aspect of the war. And so we're waiting until they become radicals and they start attacking us. And even those people who are anti-Islam or anti-radical Islam, they'll spend most of their time pointing out, well, they got this Sharia financing, or they got this problem, or this mosque is over in New York, or and they're running around pointing out at the behaviors and things that are happening in terms of the attacking. Well, by the time we get to this, it's almost too late. So what we really need to be doing is going back and saying, well, how did they get there to begin with? And why do they have to find a sense of cause and purpose in something like radical Islam? Why is it they don't find a sense of cause and purpose in our own heritage? Instead of playing, there's a game called whack-a-mole. The mole pops up and you whack it. The mole pops up and you whack it. Well, there's too many moles popping up to whack. Like you can't win like that. So you got to clear out the moles to begin. And this is what I think can be done if we short circuit this process by affirming our own heritage. The best defense is a good offense. And the best way to nip this in the bud and prevent it from happening is to affirm our own heritage. And that's why, this presentation is the final presentation of an 8-part series. And most of the 8-part series spends time talking about our own heritage, because if we get that part right, the rest of it will take care of itself. Now, there is 2 types of jihad that we need to worry about. And, okay, if you take into consideration those who are nonviolent and those who accept American democracy, they will say, well, jihad can also be an internal struggle. But I'm talking about the jihadists who want to overthrow us. So putting aside the arguments from those Muslims who embrace democracy that you can engage in jihad as an internal struggle for betterment, we'll set that aside and I want to focus on the argument of the jihadists who jihad is a way of expanding a vision of Islam that is going to lead to an Islamic state and the imposition of a caliphate who is going to impose Sharia law on us. Now, to achieve this, you engage in jihad. There's violent jihad. But there's also what is called cultural or civilizational jihad. And this is a subversion of the society from within. And it's kind of analogous to this evolutionary socialism that I was referring to when we were talking about this war of visions. Back in 1991, there was a document that was seized during a Justice Department had introduced this into evidence in the Holy Land Foundation trial. The Holy Land Foundation was an entity that was seen as having ties to terrorism, and so they had this trial.